Hi. Hi there. So this is basically a project I've been working on where I put PC games on CDs. I have all the game files in a zip on the CD, and then I have a script on the CD that handles all of that unzipping and playing the game. And then on the computer itself that I'm playing on, I have a script called just disk.sh, and that basically mounts the disk, copies the script from the disk. The script on the disk should be something called run.sh. That's copied over to the computer, and then the game files, and then that script is run, and the game files are copied from the disk to the computer as well. It's extracted, prefixes set. It's usually all this one prefix for. It's all one prefix for all the CDs, all the CD games, and once it's extracted, the script that was copied over also runs the game. And if it's already installed, it just goes straight to running the game. So yeah, that's basically how that works. And right now, what you're seeing is it being copied over and extracted, the game. And once all that's done, you will see the game launch. So yeah, I got Quake here. The reason I made this video is because of the other videos where I've seen people put games on discs, and what I find really interesting about those videos are the fact that they're made before Sony basically killed physical games, and they got a lot of traction because Sony killed physical games, despite the fact that they were released months before all of this. And watching those videos, I kind of got inspired to, put my own spin on it, make physical games for SteamOS, kind of recreate that experience of putting in a disc in a PlayStation 4 and just clicking that disc icon and it all plays. So I went through multiple iterations of this process. And originally, I wanted to have the entire game running from the disc, which would have been a horrible idea. And so what I settled for was to have basically everything you would need on the disc through like an app image. But then I soon found out that app images don't really work very nicely with SteamOS. So I went with another option that I had trouble finding information on. But what that option was to basically run the games through Proton. And the reason that I didn't think that was an option at first was because I didn't know how to run games through Proton through a bash script. So I went through the internet, all that shit, and luckily I found this Reddit post. Thank you to Michael Arthur Long. I think that's what the Reddit poster's name was. I'll link it in the description. I used his script as part of my script for this. I actually used a bunch of scripts I found on the internet. So to mount the disc, I found a script from some guy. To copy paste, I knew how to do that, but to unzip and all that shit, I found that information through the internet. To search through directories in a certain way, I found that information through websites like W3 Schools. Basic bash shit I found through W3 Schools. And so I was able to put this together thanks to the efforts of other people, and I'm really grateful that I was able to do that. And the reason I was able to do that at all was because of the fact that computers are such an open platform. So out of all these games that I've done for this project, most of them have come from Epic's Game Store, as opposed to GOG. One of them is GOG, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. I got that from GOG, but the rest are from Epic's Game Store, and one of them is a decompilation. So in about 10 seconds, this game is going to finally launch. You definitely notice the long initial install time, and that's just part of the deal with this because you're copying a zip from a CD, and CDs are very slow. But once it's installed, and anytime you put the disc in afterwards, you're good. Anytime you load, it's a lot shorter than the initial install time, but it's still a little longer than your average Steam game, but it's not anything unbearable. But hey, you can't take your average Steam game with you to an apocalypse. I was able to get these discs working on anything SteamOS. Before I even made the discs, I tested the games with the script on my laptop that has SteamOS, an Intel laptop, and it works fine on that, and it works fine on my Steam Deck. Some of the games do work on my Fedora laptop, my main laptop, but not all of them. The ones that require Steam runtimes, those do not work. Yeah, but the idea of these working on SteamOS is exciting. I mean, what if I were to get like a Steam machine? Not that I want a Steam machine, but what if I were to get a Steam machine and I put the disk.sh where it needs to be, I set up the files, and then once that's ready, I just put the disk in, and it works. That would be amazing. That would be so cool. I say it would be, but theoretically they should. Like, as far as I'm concerned, and again, I only have done so much testing, but as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason that these couldn't work on something like SteamOS, on like a Steam machine. This was a fun project. Not everything works, sadly. Sonic 2, I made a disc for that. That didn't work. That had input lag, either for my controller or maybe because of the way I set it up. I don't know why it had so much input lag, but that did, so that was kind of a bust. But other games worked. Bad North, that gave me some issues at first. If you never heard of Bad North, it's like an RTS. It gave me some issues at first, but I was able to figure out something with the script, have it run with Steam Runtime. That works. The game you see on screen right now, that's Horizon Chase Turbo. That obviously works. It's great, and it works perfectly with the disc. With Sony killing off physical games, that obviously sucks. You know, something like this is really fun, but it definitely doesn't replace what we had before, and the market is going to be so much worse after all of this. There is genuine reason to be afraid and angry, but at least a project like this reminds me that PC is still such an open platform, and even if we don't have the same options we had before, we still have options, right? For physical media, for media that we can take with us when these companies fall down, you know. DRM games still exist. GOG is a fantastic platform that has had some leadership changes that are actually looking really exciting. I think CD Projekt Red sold it back to one of the original founders. That's really cool, and hopefully that means a better future for GOG. I heard GOG is, this might be wrong, so assume it might just be misinformation, but I think GOG hired a Linux dev, or they're looking into making a Linux launcher or something like that. I could be mixing it up with something else, but either way, that's looking promising. I would absolutely use something like this over Android TV if I had to choose, and I'm really excited to see where we'll be in 5 to 10 years with SteamOS or Bazite or any of these Linux gaming distros, because we've gotten this far thanks to things like the homebrew community. I mean, Bazite didn't even exist 5 years ago. Yeah, so I have Deculator on my computer, which allows me to customize my Steam Deck to my liking as a media center, which is all thanks to the homebrew community. And you know, it'd be cool if the homebrew community could get it figured out. That's not on them, but you know, it'd be cool if somebody could get figured out. Is Widevine. Widevine is the biggest thing holding me back from using a SteamOS PC as my sole media center device. That and casting. If those two things could be figured out, and you know what? In 5 to 10 years, who knows? Who knows? That would be awesome. You know, it'd be really cool. If SteamOS, or not even just SteamOS, I keep saying SteamOS, if Linux gets more popular, you know what we might see? We might see something like Discover or something like the Steam Store be used in the same way that the Microsoft Store is. You know how the Microsoft Store has apps like Netflix or Crunchyroll for that? It'd be really cool if we had like apps like Netflix or Crunchyroll for the Steam Store for Discover. That would be awesome. But one can only hope. Alright, so anyways, I hope you enjoyed this project, and bye!